Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Mir Ali from Marcus Millichap with us, and he came through the banking industry into real estate. So Mir, I'd love to hear the story of how you got into commercial real estate.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, thanks for having me on. Really, my story probably is not that unique, but I started out in the banking career when I was a teenager as a teller, moved my way up to new accounts. And then one day specifically, there was a postman coming with the yellow pages. I'm dating myself now. It was like book, a book with all the, if you turn to M, you can see manufacturing and you see all the numbers and whatnot. Well, at the time I was working for a bank, Bank of the West, which actually doesn't exist anymore. It got bought out. But I was part of a branch in Brea, which is called the de novo branch. And what that means, it's brand new location, no clients, no foot traffic. It's brand new. And it was a really tough, job and position, but they hired a lot of ambitious salespeople to start getting that branch off the ground. So when I joined that branch, they didn't give any marketing budget. They didn't give any lists or prospects. And when that postman came that day, my operations manager was like, "Oh, thank you," and was about to throw it. I was like, No, don't throw that away. And then I grabbed it, went to M for manufacturing, because we like to do, owner occupied commercial real estate loans. And I just started cold call from there. And I didn't even know who the person I needed to talk to. There was no name. It would just say the company name. Yeah. So I would call and say, "Hey, this is Mir from Bank of the West. Can I speak to the person in charge of your banking?" And they say, "Oh, that's Bob. He's not here." I'm like, "Oh, no, write it out. Okay, Bob." Now I know for next time I reach out to Bob. And I just kept doing that over and over and over and over again until I started getting meetings. And then once my regional manager and other higher ups started to figure out I was doing this, then they kind of started to provide us with the resources to get like actual proper lists with names and all that. And that's when my business development career really took off. So then after I was doing just cold calling, and everyone would ask me, "Oh, like, what's your secret? How are you getting so much business?" And I'd literally tell them, at the time I was only doing like maybe 25 dials a day because we had other banking stuff to do. And I thought that was a lot at the time. And I would just tell them, "Look, I was just cold calling and asking the same question over and over and over again until I find somebody that might have a need and I might be relevant to help them out." So when I started doing that full time, then I went to full-time business development. And then I started to focus on businesses between 10 million and 100 million in revenue throughout the year. And how initially it sparked my interest to get a brokerage. I was doing a commercial real estate loan, and on the settlement statement, it had, obviously where all the funds are going to go to, whatever fees, appraisal and all that. And then it had the broker's commission on there. Yeah, and right. it was like $100,000. And I was like, wait, brokers get paid like six figures for like a deal like this. And I remember my counterpart was like, yeah, they make good money if, they can close a lot of deals. And that was like in 2018. So it really kind of sparked my interest to like, I wonder what they do. And then I started to research it more. And I was like, you know what? They do a lot similar to what I'm doing now. The only difference is instead of asking for, if they're market for refinancing or loans or, equipment financing or working capital, I can facilitate the buying, selling, or leasing of their real estate. And at that time, banks, they like to do a lot of owner-occupied loans, right? Because it's a little bit more stable, a little less risk-averse. So I was already dealing with a lot of manufacturing companies that owned industrial buildings. So I was already familiar with industrial buildings. I already knew a lot of the clients that were there because I built a relationship with them. So when COVID happened and the pandemic hit and, banks obviously stopped lending, everyone was kind of working from home, it really gave me some time to think like, okay, like I am now at the complete mercy of this corporation and whether or not they're going to keep us, right? Like, I don't know if they're going to end up laying us off because there's no deals happening. I don't know if they're going to keep us on. And that really irked me because I'm like, I don't want any company to be in charge of my future, So that's when I wanted to get self-employed. So then I just got my real estate license during COVID. which was also a whole fiasco because there was only one office that was offering the real estate exam.
Oh, wow.
Which was which was Sacramento.
Oh, no.
And I live in Southern California. So when I got the opening came up, I told my wife, we're going to Sacramento this weekend because I need to take my test. So literally drove up one night, took the test the next day, and then drove back down. Thank God I passed, or else I would have been really annoyed. And yeah, got into brokerage, and now I'm, buying, selling, leasing industrial real estate on behalf of clients.
So did you get your license before, or did you start working at Marcus before you actually got your license?
Well, yeah, I was pretty far enough, and I let my regional manager who had hired me, I let him know, I was saying, hey, look, I just haven't been able to take the test because of COVID. I'm all done with my certifications. I just need to open up, once they open up some spots, and I'm going to take it. So they still brought me on because I needed to do the other training and stuff that they had associated with new hires. So I was working for Marcus Millichap for maybe like 3 months as like a candidate before I was actually able to take my test and pass. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of real estate people get into the business and they don't have any kind of training session. And Marcus, of course, is kind of famous for their training session. So I'm sure you learned a lot of stuff out of that particular training.
And you know what? I'm still learning from it because the training that they have called Marcus and Millichap University, it's like an online set of courses that you have senior and tenure agents that are really successful that basically talk about different aspects of the business, and they have these videos uploaded. And how it's still relevant to me now is because when you watch it the first time, certain things don't really apply to you right then and there, right? Like you hear these situations, you're like, okay, I'm not familiar with that, don't know. But when you go back like a year or two later and you watch that same video, like, oh yeah, this it's differently now. Like,
all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know what that means now.
Right. Like, I know what that means, or I've been in that situation, or I can tell how difficult that was. So that's the other brokerages, like from colleagues that I've talked to, like they don't have anything like that. You're really lucky if you have a good senior mentor at a brokerage that can kind of take you under their wing. But for the most part, you're kind of at it alone in the beginning until you can kind of like prove yourself to a senior that, I'm worthy of you, taking me on as a junior.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I got started. I got started with a group called the Rubicon Group in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. And they just kind of threw me in the deep water and said, go swim.
Yeah.
And I actually got pissed off at them at one point and then wrote them a nasty letter saying, hey, you got to help me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of newer agents, I've only been there for 4 years. I've seen probably 60 agents come and go, like new agents.
Oh, yeah, right.
They just have unrealistic expectations of how the business is, and they think it looks really easy. And the business does get easier with time, but it's not easy though. Especially in the beginning, it's terrible. It's like really terrible.
Oh, the first year is just awful.
Yeah.
The worst. Yeah. And to have somebody there to kind of help you get through it and have some videos must be incredibly helpful to get through that whole process.
Yeah, because you don't feel as alone, right? Because when you first start off in the business, you feel like you're unique as far as like the mistakes that you're making, or maybe you feel like you're doing something wrong because you're not getting any appointments, maybe you're not getting any listing opportunities. But when you hear senior agents who are like really successful, who are pulling in 7 figures, consistently, and they kind of, reminisce about when they first started in the business, and you hear it's similar to what you're going through. It makes a world of a difference because it makes you feel like, okay, I'm on the right path. I just need to keep going.
Yeah. Well, I think you had a very big advantage over some other agents coming in, particularly in the world of cold calling, because you had already gone through that process. You had the experience of doing cold calls every day. And I know Marcus is very focused on doing cold calls. So when you came in and started doing 60 to 100 calls, it wasn't like, oh, I've never done this before. What do I say?
Yeah, I would say I had a huge advantage specifically because of my business development background, because I understood that it's not only cold calls, but going the extra mile, like still what makes me successful today is, I cold call somebody, say I have a good conversation on the phone with them, but they don't really have a need. I will go and show up at their property, within the next day or the day after and say, hey, I'm Mir. We spoke on the phone yesterday, Marcus Millichap. Like, oh, yeah, give them my card. And then just see if I can elaborate to see if there's a need there. And that's something I learned on during my banking career, that when I would do that, it would actually bring me success. So when I came to Marcus and Millichap, everybody's just a desk jockey. They just sit at their office and only call, call. Yeah. Not making an effort to maybe just go stop by and see a client, right? Well, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do that. And I've actually gotten a lot of success by doing that because nobody else does that. So
no, that's an incredibly good tip for young agents to do that, because I know one of the other brokers I talked to, Brent Wickham, he said that he would when he first started out, he'd make 30 or 60 calls a day, but he also had to go, this is way back when, he also would go out and beat doors down and get business cards from people. And so the combination of the two, well, particularly your combination of the two, where you get a good call, a warm call, and then you go and do a face-to-face with them, it's got to be a much bigger advantage than just trying to hammer on them to get an appointment to get a listing.
Right, exactly. Because you put yourself in the client's shoes, like you're a complete stranger interrupting them during the day. You might have caught them at a bad time. Maybe they had a need, but they just brushed you off because they were really busy. Like I've done that. I've gotten cold calls and I'm in the middle of doing something. I'm like, I don't have time to talk.
Yeah, right. Go away.
Yeah, go away. So I usually, when I have a good conversation with somebody, even though they didn't open up and say, well, I'm considering buying, selling, or leasing, I'll still go and stop by. So I'm more strategic when I do those random drop-ins. I only do it for people, one, that I've never gotten a hold of, like ever, or two, I've had a really good conversation with them on the phone. They didn't really express any needs, but I feel like, no, there's something there. I just feel it. Let me feel out when I'm going to be relevant and how often I should follow up with them.
So did you end up working in the industrial area? What are you focused on?
Yeah. So I'm in the Inland Empire. So I focus 100% industrial and office. I do a little bit of medical office here and there, but mainly do industrial, sticking to like the Chino Hills, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga. We have huge, even within my submarket, there's close to 5,000 industrial buildings.
Oh, wow.
That are 50,000 square feet and under. So you can make your career out of that list right there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's certainly another good tip for people to know about, is to focus on an area. Find a niche that's going to work for you.
Because I've tried to tell newer agents this too. It's like the drop-ins that I do. I always tell them, look, wherever you live, you want to stick within like a 5-mile radius of that, because I'll tell you why. Because when you're driving home, it's not a big deal to make a quick pit stop to that property that will only take 2 minutes out of your time. Hey, here's my card. We spoke on the phone, and you drive home. It's completely different if you're focusing on a market that's like way out of the way. Yeah. And because you won't go there, because California, the traffic is a big deal.
Oh. Yeah.
You're not going to be like, I'm not going to sit in an hour of traffic to maybe catch somebody at a property, right? So to me, I stuck within my, radius, because on the way home, I'm like, all right, which 2 properties am I going to stop by today? All right, these 2 quickly, even if they're not there, all right, no big deal. It was on my way home anyway. You know, it was just a 30-second
in the door or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Drop a flyer off, leave my card, leave it with the receptionist saying, hey, let them know I stopped by. And then that's it. And I've gotten people that called afterwards, and with tours, it makes a big difference, because you don't got to drive out of your way to do tours, even last minute stuff. So I've tried to tell younger agents that just stick to wherever you live, because it's really enticing to go to these big markets like LA or Long Beach or stuff where they have so many industrial buildings. But you got to think, okay, how often am I going to actually drive out there to meet people? Not often.
So this is, I know Marcus mainly because of multifamily.
Yeah.
This actually, I've talked to another broker at Marcus that was into industrial. And so it sort of surprises me that part of Marcus even exists. So that.
Yeah, because Marcus Millichap is known for apartments. Like we kill the competition with apartment brokerage. Like we're number one in the entire nation.
Right.
And
right.
that's George Marcus and Millichap, they built that company based on apartments. So majority of the agents, they do apartments. We're known to do apartments. And we have a few weird guys like me who came in and said, you know what? I don't want to do apartments. I want to do industrial. And I thought of it because of two different ways. One is I knew it was going to be harder because, we're not known for doing industrial. So
right.
You're kind of breaking into a market. But second, I got no competitors in my office.
Right.
No one is calling the same places that I'm calling for industrial. Right. So I'm like, okay, let me do that. Yeah, there might be a few guys like at different offices that do industrial, but industrial in Southern California is so massive that I've actually never overlapped with another agent from another office, trying to go to another listing because there's just so many of them there. Like even in my submarket, it's impossible for me to keep track of 5,000 properties at any given time, and I don't even want 5,000. I want like maybe 10 or 15 a year, and I'll be set,
Get that $100,000 10 times, you'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good tip also for younger agents is to try and focus on one particular area where maybe there's not as much competition coming in. So how many other agents are in your office, in the Marcus office there?
Right now, I want to say there's roughly about 30 agents. A lot of them work remotely. Ever since COVID, it really changed the dynamic of people, brokers actually coming in the office or not. But right now we have about 30, and I would say about 20 of them are like the newer agents. When I mean newer, I mean 3 years or less.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've had pretty high turnover with group. But that's to be expected because, getting into commercial real estate is not an easy job.
No.
A very difficult job to get in. But once you get that momentum going and transactions start to happen, you all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I can see how this is all going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And in the beginning, like there's a couple of senior agents at Marcus Millichap. One of them in particular, his name is Sean Wrighty. He does multifamily in New York City or Manhattan. And he uploaded a few videos on YouTube and he said, very plainly, he said, look at this business is going to take the third and fourth year for stuff to really start to come together. And I think a lot of newer agents think that, they're going to kill it in the first year or two. Some agents get lucky, right? Like they get lucky with the deal.
Yeah, right.
But they don't realize how hard you have to continuously work to make that momentum go. Like my biggest, because I've lived through it and now I've luckily transitioned over to the part where I have consistent escrow after escrow, listing after listing, like back to back to back. That what drives me is my fear of I don't want to go back to what it was like year one and year two. So I'm still calling and knocking on doors like as if I don't have any listings or escrows because I just don't want to go back to that time ever again.
I think that's another really good point is that people get successful and they get up on that curve and then all of a sudden they don't keep going with the strategy that got them there.
Right.
All of a sudden the curve goes down and they're kind of in the pits and they're going, well, what happened? And,
right.
It's you've got to be consistent at all times and keep that boat going.
And I actually learned that from my banking days. I saw firsthand, bankers that would perform really well, the first couple of years, they take their foot off the gas and then all of a sudden their pipeline goes dry. And I experienced that personally myself too. When I first, got into full-time business development, I worked really, really hard for a year and a half. I had loan after loan to start to close. And then, the dials start to dial down, you're only doing 5 a day, you're skipping days, you're not doing anything. And then pretty soon it's like so I don't even know the word to describe it. It's so slow and like it doesn't happen overnight. It just happens like over a span of like 6 months where you realize that, oh my God, I don't have a pipeline, and you can't do anything to change your situation overnight. You're like, it's like a slow process to get to the top. But as long as you get to the top and as long as you can maintain momentum in the calls, you'll be fine. But the second you take your foot off the gas and you let momentum dry up, you're done. And I've seen a lot of agents that they closed a big deal, you know, they make 50, 60 grand and they're like, oh, this is easy, I could do it. And then they're out of business. They're out of business in like 6 months.
Yeah, right. And all of a sudden nothing's happening. And they're going, well, wait, what happened? It was so easy.
Yeah. No, it's not easy, but it's worth it. I'm starting to see the benefits and the fruits of the labor. So, and it starts to get fun, you know, after a while.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a key factor is that if it starts to be a grind and you're not having any fun, you know, maybe this isn't the business for you.
Right.
But I think there is a very key factor that if you're looking at the production curve, all of a sudden your production's going up. And unfortunately, when you get to this place, that's actually where you should be doing your most marketing. But unfortunately, you're closing deals and you got escrows happening and you're busy with a bunch of other stuff. And so all of a sudden you don't, you know, you take the foot off the gas, as you say, and all of a sudden, you know, you're down the other side. And then you're at the bottom and then you got to kind of start it all over again.
Yeah, it's difficult. So I always make sure, like the very beginning of my day, I'll still cold call for about 3 hours a day, every single day. So my time is, I do it from 9 a.m. to about noon. I'll do between 50 to 60 cold calls still a day. And then I'll use like the rest of, you know, the early morning hours, I'll do responding to emails or get escrow documents out of the way early. And then from like 12 to like 7 or 12 to 6, I'll do the other stuff that I need to do to make sure deals are, you know, moving forward or going on proposal meetings or, you know, meeting with clients. But I'll always make time for cold calls. And even if it's inverted, meaning like in the mornings, my day is like really busy, I'll still keep calling until like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, you know, and I'll still make sure to do that just because it's too important not to do it. I mean, you might miss a day here and there and that's okay. But you can't let like weeks go by without you picking up the phone and trying to make contact with new people.
So I assume Marcus gives you very good information so that you don't have to spend hours tracking down names and phone numbers.
No, actually, they don't. They kind of, I mean, they give you the resources to search it. So like a lot of agents in the beginning of their career, they're half the time they're cold calling, and then half the time they're databasing. So they're looking up phone numbers or looking up information. But the good thing is once you do it properly, you know, the first time, then you just have to do very little, you know, upkeep to it. So it won't be that bad.
But so then you can kind of click off 60 calls pretty quickly.
Right. Because you know exactly which phone numbers are going to go through. And then that cuts your time in half. So you're not just doing 60 dials to like wrong numbers or, you know, numbers no longer in service. And you're just like, oh my God. Then, you know, every time you dial a phone number, you're either going to get a voicemail of the right person or they're going to answer the phone. One of those two.
So are you using CoStar for your database?
Yeah. CoStar, LexisNexis, and also another free tool is True People Search, what I don't think a lot of people know about. I would say that one is my favorite one out of all of them.
Oh, wow. True People Search. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that one up. And you say it's free.
It's free. Yeah. So if you Google True People Search, it'll give you, you know, a phone number or address to look up, like very simple, you know, easy, user friendly. And it's like 90% accurate. It's like really good. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
These are some fantastic tips that you brought out. I'm going to use some of these people, True People Search and so forth. That sounds great. I was trying to find some information for putting together this podcast, so that this might help me a great deal.
Oh, perfect. Good.
Well, I hope maybe next time I'm in LA, I'll try and catch a coffee or something with you. Hopefully we can do some business down the road here.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let me know next time you're in town, Bruce. I'd love to meet you in person. That'd be awesome.
If you have some industrial users up here, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely will.
All right. Well, great to talk to you. How would people get a hold of you, Mir?
They can reach me, mir.ali@marcusmillichap.com. Also, if you look at marcusmillichap.com and you just search the Inland Empire office, I'm one of the agents there, so you can get a hold of me any way that I can help. I'm happy to help.
Well, great to talk to you, and I look forward to talking down the road here.
Perfect. Thanks, Bruce, for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.